Hi, everyone. Welcome back to part two. Still talking about mid childhood physical development. We talked about overall growth. Now we're going to talk about what can impact that with our health. The specific topics we're covering include nutrition, bedwetting, illness, injury, and vision and hearing. Let's jump on in and talking about nutrition. Nutrition still maintains being really important for this age group, this 7 to 11 age group. We know it's very important for them to get a balanced diet. One thing that does impact this time period, however, is that about the age of 9 to 14, there's a big drop off in how many children actually eat with their caregivers. And because of this, their nutrition is impacted. They're less likely to eat grains and a balanced diet. We also know that it's super important for them still to get healthy snacks in between meals to help support their growth. We know nutrition is really important because if we see that diets higher in sugar and fat early childhood result in lower IQ in mid childhood. We also know that healthier food equates to feeling better and having more focus. That's actually reported by children. We also know that long-term and extensive malnutrition delay physical growth, motor development, and learning. So all that stuff still remains really important. There is a kind of a additional issue we have around nutrition in our country, and that is obesity. So obesity is found by utilizing the body mass index, which is just a ratio of height to weight. Obesity is defined as being greater than 20% increase over healthy weight or above the 95th percentile, Now, being overweight is a little bit less than that. That means if you have a body mass index that is the 85th or to 95th percentile. We do see more obesity in developed countries, and this is because we tend to eat a higher density nutrient foods, and we also tend to lead more sedentary lifestyles. If we look at state by state obesity, you can see that there is some variation across the United States. That really deep maroon color is going to be the states that have the most obesity and overweight. And then, of course, as you get more to yellows and greens, you're going to see less obesity and being overweight. So, as you can see, living in California, we have about 25% of our population as overweight and obese. Moving on, we can see that over time we have seen significant increases across all age ranges, but really in the time period we're studying right now for overweight and obesity. This line we're looking at that's most important to us is actually this green line right here, this dark green line. We can see in 1963, only about 4% were obese. And now looking over here all the way to the top, we're getting very close to about 20% being obese. We've seen some fluctuation, but for the most part, it really is an upward trend of having childhood obesity on the rise. Now, we have lots of causes for childhood obesity. One of them is heredity. We know that identical twins are much more likely to both experience obesity than fraternal twins are. We also know that you're more likely to be obese if your parents are obese. We know that socioeconomic status also plays a role in obesity. Early growth patterns, so how big you are as an infant, how much you gain weight as an infant, how quickly you do that was predictive of whether or not you're going to be obese when you're older. Also, your responsiveness to food cues. And this means that you're paying attention not only to how you feel if you're hungry, but maybe seeing food makes you want to eat, smelling food you eat, thinking about food makes you eat. So you're not really paying attention to that hunger signal. You're being more responsive to other cues outside of that are external. Physical activity also plays a role in this, how active we are, sedentary we can be. Family eating habits. This can be lots of things. It can be families who eat a lot of fast food, families who use food as rewards, or families who withhold foods. So lots of reasons around family eating habits, but there are more causes. Television viewing. If you are watching a lot of television, you are more likely to be sedentary, meaning that you are more likely to be obese. Early malnutrition stunts your growth initially, but then if you kind of get out of that, you are more likely to be obese later on down the road. Insufficient sleep is linked to being obese. Food environment, so what kind of food you're actually surrounded by, what is brought into the home, what kind of foods you are exposed to, all of those things. And of course, chronic stress, because it sends a signal to your body that you need to eat. All of those things are causes for obesity. Now, we have some pretty significant consequences to obesity: high blood pressure, high cholesterol levels, respiratory abnormalities, insulin resistance, circulatory difficulties, type 2 diabetes, gallbladder disease, sleep disorder, digestive disorder, forms of cancer, and of course, early death. But we have additional consequences to obesity, and one of them surrounds how people think about people that are obese. So just take a second and think about it. How do people view people that are obese or overweight? Now, they tend to be viewed as lazy and not very motivated or not very ambitious. They have a very negative perception because of this, or probably correlated with this. They tend to be more socially isolated. They have more emotional and social difficulties. They experience more peer teasing, rejection, bullying, and low self esteem. So we have these pretty significant physical consequences as well as these really significant social emotional consequences to being obese. Now we have some solutions. The main solution that is the most effective is actually coming out as a family. They notice that if you are able to lose weight as a family, a parent or a caregiver takes part in that process, you are more likely to lose weight and keep it off. Another issue would be around technology. So you could set a smartwatch and that could help you, or set games and goals through technology. Another solution would be around looking at what you're being fed at school. You get 1/3 of your nutrition from school every single day. So school meals are very important. And then prevention. So making sure we're getting education around activity levels as well as nutritional content. All right, just for fun, I have some countries listed on the left side of the screen, and then on the right side, we have different kinds of meals and school lunches. So let's just play along. Who do you think serves this one right here? If you said USA, United States of America, you are right. What about number 2? What does that look like it's from? Brazil. Number 3? You said Italy, you're right. Number 4 down here, with that's Finland. And next, you said South Korea, you're right. Next one, that is France. I think the Brie gave it away. What about down here in the left-hand corner? Greece. This one? It's getting easier, right? We only have 2 left. So Ukraine, and the last one is Spain. These are just different variations of how the world is looking at nutrition for children. And I think you can notice some real stark differences between other countries and the United States of America and the typical lunch that's being served. Obviously, ours is a bit more processed, a little bit higher in fat. Those pieces are definitely important when we think about nutrition. All right, let's talk about vision and hearing just for a second. There are some vision and hearing issues that arise during this time period. The most common is nearsightedness. There's a moderate genetic influence. If you have parents that are nearsighted, you're more likely to be nearsighted. Also, identical twins are more likely to be nearsighted together versus fraternal twins. We see this more frequently in East Asia and European ancestry. Most likely is because they do a lot of close vision tasks. They're doing a lot of reading and writing. Sitting in front of a computer screen for a long time is going to impact your vision. You also see decreased time being spent outdoors. That also will impact your vision. So if you're spending less time playing outside, you're more likely to be doing things close up, and that's going to impact your ability to see. We also see more nearsightedness with children who are in higher rates of socioeconomic status. Again, speaking to this piece of maybe spending more time reading, more time in front of technology. Now, nearsightedness is about 80% of the children in China and Japan will experience nearsightedness by high school, whereas the United States only has about 25%. As we think about hearing, we see that urinary ear infections that we've experienced in our early childhood time period continue to have an impact, with 3 to 4% of children in the United States experiencing hearing loss. Now, this rises pretty dramatically for children who are in lower socioeconomic status. It actually jumps to 20%. So those inner ear infections are pretty important to pay attention to because they can result later in life in hearing loss. Okay, let's talk about bedwetting, illness, and injuries. Starting off with bedwetting. So what is the formal wording for bedwetting? It's nocturnal enuresis, which basically just means wetting the bed at night. It impacts about 15% of school-aged children, twice as many boys as girls. There are a lot of causes for this, including heredity, hormonal imbalance. So your body takes on too much water and there's an imbalance with how much you're holding. You might actually have a muscular failure, so you actually can't hold the urine overnight. You have an inability to perceive the sensations that signaling your body you need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And also, if you have a difficult temperament, so if you're a child that doesn't really like routine or doesn't form to a routine or a schedule, all of those things that lead to a difficult temperament make you more likely to wet the bed at night. Now, there are some things you can do to work with bedwetting. One of them would be wearing a specialized watch that would signal you and wake you up in the middle of the night to use the restroom. Another thing that can be done is occasionally doctors will prescribe a synthetic hormone to help with this hormonal imbalance. Now, it's not something that's typically done long term. It's more for special occasions in the sense of, summer camps or sleepovers or things of that nature. So you don't wet the bed, but it is not a long-term solution. All right, moving on to illnesses. We know that there are higher rates of illnesses in the first 2 years of schooling just because you're getting exposed to more germs. Asthma is the leading cause for school absences and hospitalizations. And this really increases when we see cold weather, infections, such as, if we get a flu or a cold. We're having more exercise, if there's allergies in the air, as well as emotional stress. All of those things can cause asthma to increase. Now, some children do experience chronic illnesses such as sickle cell anemia, cystic fibrosis, diabetes, arthritis, cancer, and even AIDS. There's a lot of things that we can do to support these students, one of them being education. So, children who have a chronic illness can have an option to stay at home and receive their schooling from home, even through a public school. This is called home hospital instruction. And there's a specialized teacher that comes out and delivers that instruction and makes sure that you get what you need at home. This was something that I actually did for a time period in my life because the students were too medically fragile to be at school. If they came to school, they might get sick and not be able to recover. You also want to make sure these families and children are getting home visits. There's school accommodations that can be made. There's also education around educating the family on how to work with the child, make sure they have their needs met, understanding the illness itself. Some of these diseases actually, or illnesses, I should say, actually have summer camps that are specialized in order for those children to feel supported and also for their families to have a lot of knowledge and for them to be empowered to have that knowledge as well. Support groups are kind of the same thing. They want to make sure children feel supported, they understand their illness, and that they have some socialization with children going through the same things as themselves. All right, moving forward, we're going to talk about injuries real fast before I let you go. We know that fatalities increase from mid childhood through adolescence, and this is really just more risk taking. Boys are more likely to be injured or die because they tend to have a little less impulse control than girls, and there's more risk taking involved with them. We also know there's some specific risk factors that make it more likely to be injured, such as having a lower socioeconomic status, having a temperament that's more likely to be impulsive and risky, and also supervision. So if you have less supervision, which might be something that correlates with having a lower socioeconomic status, you are more likely to be injured. Now, there's a lot of things that we can do for prevention. And we think of those from an ecological context, right? So we can put laws in place, such as wearing your helmet. We can make sure there's safety materials available. And we can have updated and expanded play areas. So really a lot of things we can do as a community and also as families to ensure children are being safe and not having unnecessary injuries. Now, with that in mind, we're going to stop right here and I'll come back and see you again for health education. Thanks for joining me.